listening to Co-op Radio, streaming at koop.org. Radio for people, not for profit. Welcome to the Austin Public Library radio show, Volumes. I'm Kanya Lyons. Each week on the show, we go beyond the stacks to reveal the inner workings of the library system and the people who bring it to life. Today, we're going to have a conversation with Latoya Devison and Amanda Hasso, two community archivists from the Austin History Center. As the local history archive of the Austin and Travis County area, the Austin History Center collects and preserves documents and photos pertaining to the history, current events, and activities of our community. Many people don't know that the Austin History Center is part of the Austin Public Library system, but it kind of makes sense when you think about it. Books, knowledge, history, learning, archives, it's all about storage and retrieval of information. But before we get too deep into that, three of our favorite librarians are going to tell us about some upcoming events at Austin Public Libraries across town.
My name is Blair Parsons, and I am a reference librarian at the Falk Central Library. Friday, December 9th, the Carver Branch Library hosts a holiday edition craft crawl. This adults-only, after-hours event will feature craft stations, a DJ, festive drinks, and hors d'oeuvres. The holiday edition craft crawl is 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Friday, December 9th at the Carver Branch Library. Celebrate the holidays and make something special.
This is Kathleen Houlihan, the teen librarian at the Falk Central Library downtown, bringing you all the teen and tween events happening across the Austin Public Library system for the upcoming week. Tomorrow, on Thursday, at the Yarborough Branch Library, there'll be a Reader's Choice Teen Book Club at 7 p.m., where teens can discuss any book they've read recently with a group of fellow book lovers. On Monday, December 12th, the Manchac Road Branch will hold a Chibi-tastic drawing workshop at 3:30 p.m., and at 6 p.m., the Ruiz Branch will hold a holiday cookie decorating class for ages 10 and up. Sunday, December 13th, brings a House and Branch Teen Book Club discussion of Graceling by Kristen Kishore, which is a story about a world where people are born with extreme and feared skills called graces, and a girl struggling for redemption from her own grace, the grace of killing. On Wednesday, December 14th, the Windsor Park Branch will hold the first of our Mario Kart 8 Wii U tournaments starting at 4 p.m., and also on Wednesday, the University Hills Branch is holding Teen Geek Night at 5 p.m., where teens can geek out over fandoms, play crazy board games, and more. And finally, on Wednesday at 6 p.m., the Falk Center Library is holding the last of our Felt Friends sewing workshops, where teens can make a little polar bear pin and learn to sew. More library programs and details are at library.austintexas.gov/events.
This is Ann Minner, Youth Services Manager and Children's Librarian at the Old Quarry Branch. I get to tell you about the Austin Public Library events happening for children this next week. On Thursday evening, December 8th, there will be stories and fun for all ages at Pajama Storytime at the Manchac Branch with Miss Patty at 6:30 p.m. On Friday morning, December 9th, the Millwood Branch is hosting Music and Movement at 11 a.m. This singing, dancing program is recommended for ages 3 to 5 years. Several of our branches will be hosting election runoffs this week and may have had to make adjustments to their programming. Details are at library.austintexas.gov.
The Texas Talking Book Program provides digital audio, large print, and braille books and magazines to Texans who cannot read standard print due to qualifying visual, physical, or reading disabilities. Reader advisors are on hand to help navigate patrons through thousands of titles available for download to our free digital audio player. To see if you qualify or for more information, visit www.texastalkingbooks.org.
Co-op Radio features roots programming every morning of the week. This is Rod Moog inviting you to join me for the country, swing, and rockabilly jamboree Thursday mornings from 9 to 11. Our country is classic, our swing is western, and the rockabilly is the early kind from the mid-1950s. Thursday mornings 9 to 11. Look for you there.
And we are back with Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Today, from the Austin History Center, we have African American Community Archivist Latoya Devizin and Mexican American Community Archivist Amanda Hasso. And we're going to talk about the work that they do, collecting and preserving the history of underrepresented and marginalized groups in Austin and in Travis County. It is the job of the community archivist to ensure that Austin's diverse communities receive historical recognition and representation at the Austin History Center. And there is a third archivist who was unable to be here with us today, but perhaps we'll be able to have Funshani in with us another time. So I would like to welcome both Amanda and Latoya. Thank you for coming and being here today to talk to us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So before we kind of dive into the archives and all that, let's just get to know you guys a little bit. Amanda, let's start with you. Where are you from?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Brownsville, Texas. It's as far south as you can go in the state of Texas. I was really eager to see different parts of the country. So when I was 17, I took advantage of a scholarship to get my undergraduate degree in Philadelphia. And then I eventually ended up in Seattle to pursue my master's in information science.
Awesome. And so what inspired you to become an archivist?
I think it was a variety of different sources. I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to be an archivist when I went to library school. But my family and cultural heritage combined with the background and interest in humanitarian rights and Chicana and indigenous feminism led me to an internship working at the Labor Archives of Washington, and then as a librarian of the Washington State Labor Education and Research Center. So I felt very passionate about the work that was being done at both of those institutions. So I definitely say that the social justice aspect of preservation and the promotion of underrepresented communities was really my main motivation.
Wow, that's really awesome. And so let's talk to you a little bit, Latoya. Welcome.
Thank you.
So where are you from?
I am from New Orleans, Louisiana, so I'm very proud New Orleanian. And I mostly grew up in Virginia, so I split my time between the two states. And I am now a Texan, so now I'm here in Austin. So it's a nice transition from Louisiana to Virginia, back to Louisiana, now to Austin. So
Awesome. Well, welcome to Austin. So tell me, how did you end up in the archive world?
Well, most people know about a little thing that happened in New Orleans called Hurricane Katrina.
Oh, that.
Yeah, it was just a small event in our lives. And so after Hurricane Katrina, I went home to help with rebuilding and cleaning up the city. And while I was down there, I started preserving artwork and working with restoration. And so I eventually went to school to get my master's in museum studies. So I do have a museum background. And while working with museums, I learned about archival work and preservation, because when I was in a museum, I worked with collections management behind the scenes. I enjoy that more than being a curator. And so from that, I went to library school and I've got my degree in archives management. So
Awesome. Wow. It's interesting, y'all, coming from different parts of the archive world,
And
museum
ending up in
sciences
the
and
same
library
place.
science. And ending up, yeah, that's really neat. Well, so let's talk a little bit about kind of a day in the life of an archivist. Amanda, what would that look like? What would a day in the life of Amanda Hasso look like?
Well, I guess one of the really cool things about our job is that there isn't a typical day. Our day-to-day changes really often. So in short, my job is to preserve and promote Mexican American and Latino history in Austin. And in theory, I try to prioritize my time equally between community outreach, reference, and processing archival collections like a real archivist. But the reality is that it changes depending on the time of year and what is important to Latino communities in Austin. So I do a lot of cultural programming during Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's really unique because we actually get 2 months, September and October. So that really takes up a lot of my time. So I'll be doing stuff like that. I'll also be helping the community actually understand what archives are and why they're important to extending the cultural narrative of our communities. And I think a lot of work goes into that, just breaking down what it is that we actually do and why it's important.
Ooh, well, I can't wait to dive into dig in a little deeper with some more of that here in a second. Well, let's talk a little bit with you, LaToya. I imagine you do a lot of the same kinds of things that Amanda does, but just within the African American community. So talk about some of the stuff that you get to do.
Sure. So like Amanda said, none of our days are the same. So sometimes we come in and we're traditional archivists where we're processing a collection or preserving a photograph, doing that type of work. And then sometimes I actually go out into the schools and teach classes about Travis County history and African Americans. So sometimes I go out and do that. There are other times where we work at festivals and do different community events, so no 2 days are the same. But my favorite thing about our job is the ability to be able to connect with the community and talk to them about the importance of history and why we do what we do. So that's my favorite part of our job.
Absolutely. Bringing history to life for these folks in the community, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Well, so we are in the studio today with LaToya Devson and Amanda Hasso, and they are both community archivists at the Austin History Center. So I would like to talk a little bit about the specifics of the kinds of things that you collect. LaToya, so what types of items are you looking to collect for the History Center, and where are there significant gaps in the local African American history?
With African American history, we have significant gaps due to slavery. So there is a disconnect with pre-1870 specifically, where history is missing. Also, when you look at slave narratives and slave deeds, when you look at documents and actually see them, you'll see that for slaves, it doesn't have names. Names are not, always listed on documents. So it may just say boy or girl. Or woman, so you don't know who this person is. Was this my grandmother, my uncle? Who was this person? So sometimes when you're looking at African American history, we have those gaps because you don't know who these people are. And so sometimes we get photographs, but we can't identify people. So that's our biggest issue with collecting African American history, is filling in these gaps and trying to piece together stories that have been interrupted at different points in history. So that would be the most difficult part of our job. The Austin History Center right now, for our African American collections, we are interested in documents pertaining to Black musicians, anything about African Americans during the Republic era, military records, business records, and organizations such as the Douglas Club or the Links, benevolent societies, organizations like that.
And when was the Republican era? Like what?
So we're looking for 1836 to 1848, early documents, if people have those, to help us piece together African Americans coming into Texas at that time, especially free people of color, because during certain points in history, if you were a free person of color in Texas, you had to leave. You weren't able to stay here or re-enslave yourself. So there are different situations like that through history where we're interested in telling those stories.
That's important. We don't want to forget about that part of history. It's important to make sure that we learn as much as we can about all of our history. That's really interesting. So Amanda, let's talk to you a second about the Mexican American history, particularly in Austin and Travis County. Where are some of the areas where we have a deficit in documentation, and maybe where are some of the missing pieces?
Sure, yeah. There is a significant gap in materials relating to undocumented immigrants and refugees in our collections. Right now, I'm currently on a planning committee for a new exhibit at the History Center about communities of refugees that arrived in Austin. And at times, it's been really difficult to gather information about certain groups. And unfortunately, many of the elders who lived during these time periods, particularly during the Mexican Revolution, are no longer around. So that's a struggle. The materials we don't have are incredibly culturally sensitive, and it requires a really strong foundation of trust between us, the institution, and the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are some difficult hurdles, and hopefully we have people out there that can maybe take an interest and help provide some.
A lot of people do have their naturalization papers and records. They're just afraid to part with them. And so that's a barrier in trying to collect these kinds of materials.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I can imagine, especially, yeah. We are going to take a a brief break, play a few announcements, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about y'all's work as community archivists. Let's roll those clips.
Listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show.
On Co-op 91.7 FM, Hornsby, Austin, radio for people, not for profit.
Are you ready to finally start that startup? Budding entrepreneurs and small business owners have access to a wealth of reliable and up-to-date online information at their local library. The TechShare Small Business Reference Center offers startup kits, business plans, financial forms, industry info, how-to videos, and much more, just by using your library card. Info at your local library and tsl.texas.gov.
The ticking
Are you
here
ready
marks
to
the
finally
passage of
start
time,
that?
which is marching toward December 17th, the day on which Co-op Radio will have its annual birthday party, and this year it promises to be a real blast. That's right. On Saturday, December 17th at the Spider House Ballroom, it is the Co-op Blowout with 3 legends of Austin music. I am talking about the growling blues rock of Omar and the Howlers, the classic reggae sound of Pressure, and just about everything else you can imagine provided by the one, the only Joaquin Carrasco. Low side effects. Get your tickets at spiderhouse.com or on a link from koop.org. Co-op Blowout. More information forthcoming.
And you're listening to the Austin Public Library radio show, Volumes. Next up, we're going to play a clip about the community archives at the Austin History Center. And this is actually audio from a video that is available on the Austin History Center's YouTube account. And honestly, I could lose an entire day of my life just exploring the treasure trove of cool old videos on the History Center's YouTube channel. There's so much great stuff. But let's go ahead and listen to this audio clip. It'll tell us a little bit more about the community archivist's role in Austin.
Hi, I'm Feng Shani. I am the Asian American Community Archivist here at the Austin History Center.
My name is Amanda Hasso, and I am the Mexican American and Latino Community Archivist at the Austin History Center.
My name is Latoya Devizin, and I am the African American Community Archivist for the Austin History Center.
As the History and Research Division of the Austin Public Library in the city of Austin, Texas, the Austin History Center collects and preserves Austin's community's histories.
If you think about it, archives, which are places that preserve history, they're really a place that history is preserved through documents, through images, through items. I mean, that's a process of selection. So how I see the Community Archivist program fitting into the overall mission of the Austin History Center is that it ensures equal representation.
The community archivist asks families and organizations to donate their family letters, scrapbooks, photographs, maps, and ephemera to the Austin History Center.
In addition to collecting the materials of underdocumented communities, we also educate children in schools, conduct public programming, and we participate in community events such as local festivals.
The more history we have, the more diverse it is, the better it is. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of people, when they think about history, they think about these ideas of objectivity, neutrality. Those things don't exist. You know, there's always a bias, especially when it comes to archiving, which is a selection, right, of what you want to preserve and what you don't.
So my day-to-day duties as a community archivist vary. That's one of my favorite aspects about my job. No 2 days are the same. Sometimes I can come in and work the reference desk. Sometimes I go out and teach a class. Sometimes I come in and conduct public programming, and sometimes I have regular archivist duties where I come in and do processing and preserve collections.
In general, community archives can be seen as a grassroots activity of documenting, exploring, and preserving communities' histories in which the community itself and their participation is essential.
And it's very unique here in Austin to have this program. A city in the South, but even in this country, that is devoting, 3 jobs to outreach and to ensuring there is equal representation.
I originally am from New Orleans, Louisiana, and so We lost everything with Hurricane Katrina. The most challenging part of my job as the African American community archivist is that Austin is one of America's fastest growing cities, but it also has America's fastest shrinking African American population. Austin had Black business districts at one time on 6th Street. Without the photos that we have, the family histories, those donated materials, we wouldn't know that those neighborhoods existed. And so that's one of the reasons why community archives are so important. Because sometimes tomorrow is not promised, and if we don't write these stories down and document them, we don't know that they happened.
So I think a major challenge is kind of working with the entire community. Yes, my job is with the Asian American community, Amanda's is with the Mexican American, Latoya's is with the African American. We work within our communities, but we also work with the greater community to let them know that this diverse history is one that just makes our entire city's history better.
Garnering community participation is crucial to our success.
And that was an audio clip about the Austin History Center Community Archives. And Fonshani was not able to be here today, but we did get to hear from her in that audio clip a little bit. We do have community archivists Latoya Devson and Amanda Hasso live in the studio with us right now, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the work that they do preserving Austin's history, especially within underrepresented communities. So, Latoya, would you share with us perhaps a little-known fact about African American history in Austin? Something significant, but maybe that people are not aware of.
One really fun fact about Austin that a lot of people don't know is that Jackie Robinson, before he went to play with the Brooklyn Dodgers, he actually was the basketball coach of Sam Houston College here in Austin in the 1944 and 1945 season. So that was a pretty cool fact. And the president of Sam Houston at that time, it's Houston Tillotson now, Carl Downs, he married Jackie and his wife, Rachel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's a pretty fun fact about them.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
Oh, and I have one more, fun fact.
Yeah.
But this is my favorite. So Gil Askey created the Motown sound at the time. So, Smokey Robinson, the Temptations, all these great groups, and the Supremes, he wrote all the music. He even was nominated for an Oscar for Lady Sings the Blues. Mm-hmm. But the fun thing about that is because they were Black, when they came to stay here, they had to stay with local families because they couldn't stay in hotels. So you had all of these superstars staying in local people's homes here in the area. So East Austin at one time was full of all of the architects of the Motown sound. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a fun, interesting fact.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm curious to know, I think it's apparent to us, but maybe not so much to our listeners, what do we mean when we talk about underrepresented history and the role, what you're doing is really just trying to make sure that this aspect of history is recorded. And so would you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So when we, in a professional literature, when we talk about history, we talk about whose history. So whose history is a big narrative, philosophical discussion that historians have debates about. And so the context about whose history is whose history dominates the national narrative. And right now, when we look at the course of American history, voices of marginalized communities, mainly women and people of color, are not as included in those narratives. And so one reason why the Community Archivist Program exists is to help fill those gaps in. Because if we just tell one aspect of history or one perspective, we're not getting the entire story because we're missing all these other voices.
Absolutely. And Amanda, what can you add to this this discussion about underrepresented voices?
Well, Latoya said that beautifully.
Yes,
I would say also in places like Austin that are rapidly changing, these stories quickly get lost. And so I think that's also part of our role. Underrepresented communities can become invisible sometimes when the demographics shift so quickly and in a direction that doesn't really include everyone's voices and narratives. So I think that's a big responsibility that we have in the city of Austin.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, with all the growth that Austin has experienced and all the gentrification, I can see the point you're making. It's very critical to sort of make sure that we gather this. And I don't want to leave you out as far as the fun facts. Do you have a little known but sort of interesting tidbit?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people know this, but the area that we now call the Warehouse District and along Shoal Creek was once home to the largest group of Mexican settlers within city limits. And at this time, living along the river was really undesirable because conditions were more unsanitary before city-funded utilities. So across from that way, there was Mexican Park. It was referred to as Mexican Park, and that's what we now know as Republic Square. So I think that's really a lot of people don't know that. And also, the first documented listing of an interracial couple actually appeared on the first census of Austin in 1875, and it was between a Mexican laborer and, as they listed it, a colored woman. So I thought that was pretty fascinating considering the times and the
pretty open-minded place from way back. Well, maybe not.
I don't know the context of it, but being the first people listed on the census as an interracial married couple is very interesting. So,
neat.
Yeah.
Neat. Well, so what are some of the types of documents? I know photos are something that y'all are looking for the archive. Documents about, birth certificates, marriage certificates, those types of things. What other audio, video footage of any major events or of people within the community? Is there anything that I'm leaving out?
Believe it or not, obituaries are actually really important because they contain all the family members listed for an individual when they pass away. So it's really helpful for people who are doing genealogy research or any type of family history. Maybe if you might have been adopted, an obituary is quite helpful when you're doing research with your family.
I never know that.
Yeah, and things related to property as well, especially in the changing landscape. But yeah, family records, organizational records, and a lot of people are like, well, what's important? But honestly, there's everything that's in Austin and Travis County is very critical to our needs and collections.
Believe it or not, even restaurant menus are important. Right now, we're working on a program about African American culinary history, and food menus are actually pretty important. And we realize that we don't really have very many at the History Center. So that's an area where we need to do more collecting, obviously.
All right. Well, that's all really good to know. We're completely out of time now, but I just want to thank y'all so much for joining us. We've been talking with LaToya Devison and Amanda Hasso, who are community archivists at the Austin History Center. There is more information about the Austin History Center at austinhistorycenter.org. Thanks for listening to Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show. Details at library.austintexas.gov/volumes.
Want to give a special thanks to our audio engineer, DJ Harris, and our volunteer production assistant, Sev Corson.
And thanks to the musicians who composed and performed our original theme song: Andrew Noble on violin, Kirk Duvall on guitar, and APL's very own Mike Wheat on percussion.
Volumes, the Austin Public Library radio show, airs Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on KOOP.org Community Radio.